Fine. So let's continue. So is the screen visible? Okay. Now let me try this command. Okay, fine. So now today we will see this commands, right? How you can use this MongoDB server from the command prompt. And for that, you need to run a special client program for the MongoDB. And that you run using Mongo command that we discussed yesterday, right? Mongo command will run your client shell. So clear screen is normal, CLS command is there. Now, if you want to see existing database, then before that, let us run this Mongo command. So it will start your Mongo shell. It's a client shell. Now with this, you need to read this connecting to MongoDB this. So the default local server that you have here, MongoDB server, there it will be connected. If you want to connect to some other server on other port, you can provide those options while starting this Mongo client. But by default, it will connect to this. Okay. And yeah, and then the next command, let us see. If you want to know what are the databases, okay, which are available on this server. So for that, there is show databases or show DBs. That is the command. It will tell you that these are the databases. Temp, yesterday I generated this temp. Okay, it was not there. By default, there were only 3: admin, config, and local. Similar to your MySQL and all those SQL, if you want to use any particular database, the command is use, and I can say temp. So it will tell you that switch to DB temp. Now, if I say use, and if I use some other name, Urjit will discuss this later. Okay, let me finish this part, and your specific query, we will handle it separately, right? So now if I say use, and if I say some other name which does not exist, if I use some another database which does not exist even, let's say temp1, or let us use users. Now in this case, it will create that database and then switch it to that. And now you are in this database. Okay. If you say DB, it will tell you in which database you are right now. The command DB will tell you in which database you are right now. If I use again temp, use temp, so it is switched to that. And if I say DB, temp is there. And if I say show databases, now you can see, yeah, you can see that there is no database called users. Can you see that? When I say use users, it was switched to that. So I thought it is created, right? But it is not there. Why it is not there? Because this database will be physically created only if you create some collections inside that. If you put some data inside that, then only it will be created. Okay. So now if I say use users, okay. So again, I'm back to that. If I say DB, it is showing me users. So it shows that users database is there. But when you say show databases, it is not showing you, right? So let us create some. Now this is database. Inside database in our normal SQL, we are creating tables, but here we will be creating collections. Collections is equivalent to tables in MongoDB. So, and if you want to drop any database, this is the command. Okay, let me try this, what it says. Okay. And to drop this, see what you need to do. If you want to drop any database, first you need to select that database. You need to be inside that database, and then you can call db.drop database. So right now I'm in users. Let me call db.drop drop database. It says, okay, it is dropped, though it wasn't shown because there was no data. So it wasn't shown, but it was created somehow, and now it is dropped also. So now, again, I just go to back this users. Okay, let me now create some collections. So for that, if you want to view collections, the command is show collections. What do you think? What it will show? What this command will show in users database? Nothing. Basically nothing, because there is no collection right now, right? If you want to create collection, this is the command db.create collection students. Let us try this command. Okay. Fine. This is in presentation mode, so I can't copy it. So let us say db.create collection. Let us say students. So it says, okay, one operation is performed. And now if you say show collections, it is showing you the collection. Right? Then if you want to insert data, see now here I am showing the insert command or insert method, but with newer versions, okay, this insert is now replaced, though this insert still works, but now the newer versions are used, that is insert one and insert many. But first let us try this db.students.insert. Okay, let us try that. I am in this I am in db called users, and there I have created one student collections, and now I want to insert some record inside this students collection. So for that, it is db dot which collection you want to insert record in. I want to insert in students, and now I say insert. Now insert is like method, but what you want to insert? Record. And in MongoDB, what is record? Like in SQL, it is row or it's a tuple, right? Yes, you can think that way, that collections are equivalent to tables. So it is document. Priyank is correct. Now row or the record, it is nothing but the document, and document is of what type? How you provide document? BSON actually it is internal mechanism. Binary JSON, that is BSON. It is internal mechanism to store your data, and that is object. That is object. So it is object means curly brackets, and now you need to provide key value pairs or field values. Okay, you need to provide key and value. So let's say key is name, and the value, let's say it is some string. Now I want to add this student inside this collection called students. Okay, so I have inserted this. There is another one, other method is also there. Let me try that. And if I want to add another field, okay, let us try this. So what you can see here, the first student that I inserted, okay, it was having only one field, that is name. Now second student that I am going to insert with the another method called insert one, okay, it is having two fields. So let's try this. What happens? Okay, so you can see it is insert, and now the difference, what this insert method returns and what this insert one returns. Insert one is a newer version. Okay, and you can do that also. So now if I want to see all the data in my students collection, all the data, that is all the documents. So there is a method called db.students.find. This is the method. This is like select query, select all. This is like select all. Select star from students. It is similar to that. So this is db.students.find. And now you can see that there are two documents inside this collection, and there is some default ID also. There is some default ID. I didn't provide that ID while inserting that data, but automatically it was generated for each record, for each document. And in first document, there is only one field. And in second document, you have two fields, and that is possible. This is not possible in table, in RDBMS. At least you need to provide null value or something like that. Yes or no? Or if you do not provide by default, if you set it to null, it will be null. But here, first record is having only one field, second record is having multiple, and that is allowed. Normally, you shouldn't do this, except when it is quite necessary to do it. Otherwise, you shouldn't do this. Make sure that whatever data you insert, whatever documents you insert in the same collection, make sure that you are using the same design. I mean, same number of fields and same fields in that all the documents in the same collection. There is no much difference. Insert was the older version of the method. Insert one, and there is another method like insert many is another. These are the newer versions. With the newer versions of this MongoDB, these methods are added. Otherwise, insert is still working. If you want to insert multiple records, here we have inserted one record at a time. If you want to insert multiple records, multiple documents, you can use insert, or you can use insert many. Are you getting this? So some of this command, and if you want to drop the collection, if you want to drop the collection, this is the way you can do it. Yes, only insert still works to enter multiple records. But what is suggested by MongoDB itself, that if you want to insert one record, use insert one method. If you want to insert multiple record, use insert many method. These are the newer versions instead of only using insert. But it's up to you. Now, if you want to drop the collection, this is how you can drop it. db.collection name.drop method, and it will be dropped like deleting table. It is like deleting or dropping the table. So these are some of the commands to get the data. db.studentsfind. This is like select star. Then this is interesting, db.students.find.pretty, because in this case, currently, these are very small documents and they can be easily understood. But when you have multiple documents and they are of bigger size, multiple fields are there, they are embedded documents within one document. In that case, it won't be displayed this well. I mean, it won't be displayed in this, in much readable format. So if you want to display them in much readable format, there is a method called pretty that you can use after find. So now you can see that. Because if you have more than two fields, it is showing like this. So it is more readable. It is more readable. So pretty will just, make your display more pleasant. I mean, more readable. That's it. Otherwise, there is no use of pretty. And then these are some criteria that you can pass to fetch your data, to select your data, like where clause. It is similar to where clause. So what this does, db.students.find where name equal to Viren. Okay, so this is how you can do it. So let us try. It will give you that record only. So this is where clause. Then you have, roll number. So you want to fetch all the records where roll number is greater than 10. $GT stands for greater than. So roll number whose value is greater than 10. Roll number whose value is greater than or equal to 10. Roll number whose value is greater than or equal to 10. But let's say it gives you, suppose 90 records. you have 100 students and you have roll number from 1 to 100. So this will give you 90 records, but it will give you only, it will display only 5. It will fetch only first 5. Okay. Then you have sort also. If you, after fetching the records, if you want to sort those records based on some criteria, based on some field, like roll number, okay, you can say, and then that is the field on which you want to sort. And here you can say plus, here you can say 1 or -1. 1 means increasing order, -1 means decreasing order. Okay. So this is another way to do it. Then if you want to apply this and or, okay, so you can say db.students.find and condition between these two. So basically you want to find those students whose roll number is 10 and name is Viren. Okay, and condition. And here you want to find student whose roll number, either whose roll number is 10 or whose name is Viren. So you may get, at least 2 records, because it is possible that Viren is not having roll number 10. So you will get 1 record whose roll number is 10. Okay. And there can be another student whose name is Viren. So you will get both the records. So this is and or, that how you can apply. Actually, and you can just pass it here. It's array. You can see that it is an array. Similarly, this is or. It is also an array. So you can pass any number of elements here. Okay. To update. Now update is a older version. Now you have update 1 and update many also. So db.students.update roll number 5, where roll number is 5. So this record I want to update. And what I want to update, I want to set mobile number field with this value. db.students.update, where roll number is 5, and set mobile number equal to this. I hope you are understanding this. So this is the syntax. db.collectionName.update. First, you need to put selection criteria to select which records you want to update and what data you want to update. That is second part. Are you getting this? Then you have, okay, update multiple document on the basis of some condition. So roll number 5, set mobile equal to this, and multi true. So to update multiple document on the basis of some condition. Yeah. So basically, if you want to update multiple documents, not only one document. Shine what you don't understand. This one. So what you don't understand, if you want to select some data which matches this as well as this criteria, both criteria, then it is AND. Or you want to find data which matches either this criteria or both, that is OR. I mean, what is difficult in that? Is it clear now? And here you can see I can update roll number 5, data with roll number 5 and set mobile this. Let's say, though this is not suitable example, but if it is possible that what criteria you put here, let's say I'm putting name here. Just say I'm putting name here. Name is some name. Okay. It is possible that multiple students are having same name. So in that case, all those students' mobile will be changed to this value because you say multi equal to true. To create an index on field name. So this is for creating index. So, we are not going in detail of this. And that is also in descending order. And then, okay. If you want to save document, I mean, normally by default it gets saved. But if you want to save some document, okay, without specifying an ID field, you can simply do like this. db.students save roll number 7. So that particular document will be saved whose roll number is 7. So it will insert a new student document with a new ID field with a unique object ID value. If it does not exist, it will be inserted. Okay. Save a new document specifying an ID field. So if you want to save new document, okay, with ID that you want to provide some ID. If you don't provide, automatically ID will be given. That is 12 bytes ID, object ID is a type. But if you want to provide your own ID, you can do like this also. So this will override the ID field, and whatever value you provide, that will be saved. So save is another method. Then we have remove method to remove data. Okay, so db.students.remove an empty bracket. Okay, so it will remove all the documents from that collection. If you want to remove particular document based on condition, you can put that all the students whose roll number is greater than 10. This is wrong. This should be colon. Okay, this should be colon. So roll number greater than 10. So all those students will be removed. And here what it says, to remove a single document that match a condition. Okay, so this second flag, second parameter you need to pass through, so it will remove only single document which matches that condition. So these are some different methods which are available, and we have seen them in a very brief. Okay, what I want you to know that, because this is not all, right? This is just a introduction, you can say. If you really want to learn all these methods, what I suggest, you go to its official site, and there is a good manual. There is a very good manual, documentation, and then MongoDB manual. You just go to this and you can learn all the things here. See, let's start with CRUD operations. So you can see insert one, insert many, newer versions. Some example. So this is insert operation, that is create operation, or insert operation that is called create. Then we have read operation, how you can read, basically find is the method, and how you apply different queries, right? Update is there, delete is there. And from here you can go to different links. Different links are also given for different kinds of queries that you want to fire. Okay, so this is insert document, query documents, update documents, delete documents. Then you can do bulk write operation. So you just go through all this and you will get the idea how this MongoDB you can use. What are the commands that you need to use? Okay, then you have aggregation, data models, transactions, indexes, securities. These are the admin side requirement, but at least aggregation and data models up to that, or transactions you can see that, indexes you can see. So this is the official documentation, and whatever is there, that is the final word, right? That is ultimate. So what I just discussed, that was very brief, just to give you a start. But otherwise, if you really want to learn this, you need to go into these details and you need to read these documents. Are you getting this? Yes. So just note this document, that you need to read this document to learn more about MongoDB. Okay. And now I hand over to Prashant sir. He will continue because he has to cover something before this exam. So he will continue now. Prashant sir, are you there? Sir?
Good morning, everyone. Okay, I just wanted to finish a few slides and one or two topic before your second sessional exam. And then I will upload these slides, and for further detail, you can refer to the official Angular documentation website. Fine, so let me share my screen first. Siddharth sir, can you stop presenting your screen? Okay, thank you. Okay, in the last lecture, we have discussed how to inject the services at different places. Can you just quickly recap what are the different places where we can inject the service? Basically, how we register our service, correct, at component level. And if we insert or inject the service at component level, then it would be available within that component as well as all the descendant component. Okay, fine. Then there are root level and module level. If we inject the service at root level, then it is available to any module, any component in your entire project. If you are injecting a service at the module level, it is accessible within all the components of that module, all the components that belong to that module. Fine. So now we are close to coming to an end of the front end in the sense that we are developing front end and now we require some data from the back end. So from the next session, in the next session, we will see how to fetch the data from the back end. But what if we have not developed the back end? How to test your code and how to integrate how to integrate the front end code once the back end is ready. So you will learn how to do that. And doing it seamlessly require a incremental approach of software development. So what we are doing right now, we are developing the front end, and first we'll create a service. Suppose right now I'm creating an employee service which is fetching the data from the backend through the API call, and these API call are running on the HTTP protocol. So in that sense, what happens? The backend can be written in any language, and we get the interoperability. That means backend can be written in any language: Java, Python, C#, any language, and your front end can be written in any language like Angular, React, or any other framework, or plain JavaScript, HTML, CSS is also fine. So what we are going to do, we are going to create an employee service which will fetch the data from the backend, and from our front end, that is Angular, will display the data onto the screen. Okay. So basically we have created an employee service. So this is the template generated by the Angular CLI. Now we are not injecting at the root because now we want to inject at particular point. Now this is the code of the service. I hope that it is readable. It is very simple code. Employee service is a class containing an array of all the employee records. Right now it is hard coded. We are not getting the data from the backend. So this is the first step towards the full-fledged front-end back-end integration. And there is a method called getEmployees, which will return all these records of all the employee. So basically we are creating a static array of employee records. Any doubt in this slide? Hope that this is clear. So there is not much magic in this code. Simple, straightforward code, static array of employee records, and a method which will return this record. So right now you can see that this data is static. It is not coming from the backend. So now you can test your front end like this. You insert some dummy data and you can develop your complete front end without even developing or writing a single line of code in the backend. So in industry, the project is developed in this way because there are several different teams, front end team, back end team, and without even requiring any coordination, they can do the parallel development and saving the time. And even testing it is also possible. Once both the front end and back end is ready, simply integration is required, which will not require much time. But anyway, we'll see that. So now we are injecting the service at the module level. So within the app module, there is a provider section. By default, if it is not available, you have to insert it as part of the ng module decorator function. So we have providers and we specify that employee service should be injected at this point. So now this service is accessible within all the components of the Angular, which belong to this app module. Now what we do within our app component or any other component, you can use it. What you need to do, basically, okay, yeah. Within the say app component, in the constructor, we are using the employee service. And as we know, basically it's an example of dependency injection. Angular framework will create an instance of the employee service and it will pass the reference to that service. Once we have hold of that employee service object, then we can invoke the get employee method and we can initialize our employee list. So just skim through this 2-3 line code, 3-4 line code, and make sure that you understand this code. Now this app component is dependent on the employee service to fetch the data, and the job of the employee service is to fetch the data and deliver it to any component class which requires it. Right now, app component is requiring the service of employee service. Again, this is very simple code. Basically, it is invoking the get employee method and initializing its property called emp list, which is empty array. But once within the constructor, it is getting the reference, and in the ng on init lifecycle method, basically it is initializing it. Any doubt in this slide? Okay. And now once we have hold on this employee list, once we have list of all the employee records, simply we can display it in our template. Okay. So let's go to the template part. Right now I'm not using the separate URL. So I'm using template. Within that I'm writing ng4 that will iterate through all the employee records, and basically we are displaying it within the S3 tag. And basically this all are employee object of ID, name and designation. We are displaying all these three fields of the employee. So what we have done, we have created employee service, initialize it with the static employee records. Now we have created a component class or existing app component class. We are injecting the service via DI framework, and then we get the list by invoking the get employee method, and we are displaying it in our through the template. Finally, this will be the output. So let me show you this output by running it in a VS Code. Yeah. You can see that it displays these employee details, employee ID, name and designation. So here is the, I will show you the employee service. So basically employee service, we have initialized this array of employee records, and then we have a method called get employees, which will return all the employees. So right now I have added two methods. One, if I pass the employee ID, it will return that particular employee ID. Otherwise, it will return the list of all the employees. And one thing what I have done, I think whether it is available, I have created an interface over here. Okay. So let's go back to the code. Yeah. So this is how you can get this data, but right now this data is coming from the static list. It is not fetching from the backend, and it is not dynamic. It is static. Now, to actually fetch the data from the backend, what we require, we want to talk on the HTTP protocol and then fetch this list using the API call. So basically, API call is a interface to the outside world, which provides the data using HTTP protocol. So normally we invoke the HTTP GET request to fetch the HTML file. Okay, browser issues the HTTP GET request to fetch the data, HTTP put request to store the data to the server side. So basically we require library which will through the HTTP protocol can talk to the backend. So in Angular, we have this package and class called HTTP client through which you can invoke this or issue this HTTP request. Get, post, put, delete, kind of all this request. Now, how this data is coming, there are different ways this data can be fetched. So for that, one of the mechanism is through the concept of design pattern called observable. So, and there is also another design pattern. Have you heard of publish subscribe model, pub sub model? Okay. So this is very simple. I will tell you the example. Normally we subscribe for magazine, periodicals, newspaper. So that is publish subscribe model. So newspaper agency or agent is he is the publisher, and we subscribe to him or her. Okay. So we are the subscriber, and whenever there is a new copy, the new copy is delivered at our home. So this is the physical thing. Similarly true for e-copies or e-magazine or e-periodicals. So this is called publish subscribe model, where first of all we need to subscribe, and then the publisher will, whenever there is a new copy, will be delivering or notified to the subscriber that the new copy is arrived and this new copy would be delivered. So that is called publish subscribe model. Similarly, there is also a observable design pattern, in which what we have, there is a observable and there is a observer. So observer will register to the observable that whenever there is a change, give me the data. So observer will subscribe to the observable. Okay. And there may be multiple observer which who are subscribing to the same observable. So it is possible, and it is also possible that multiple observables are there. Now what happens once the observer is subscribed to the observable, whenever there is a new data, the new data will be returned to the observer. So how does this new data is delivered to the observer? Via the different methods available with the observer. For example, if there is a new data, a next method available in the observer will be invoked. So whenever there is a new data, the observable will invoke the next method of the observer. Okay. If there is an error method will be invoked. And once the observable is done, like it is just closing that now the observable is no more, it is not in a state to deliver no more the periodicals or data, then complete method will be invoked. So normally it happens that the observable will never run out of the data. So this complete method will be never be invoked. So what happens? Basically, observable will invoke these methods whenever there is a new data available to it, and it will invoke the method next, and it will also deliver the data. So this is the observable pattern. So we have observable, observer, subscription. Okay. And this data is normally, this kind of design pattern is required for event handling or asynchronous programming. Okay. So suppose in this event employee case, suppose this employee example, suppose we are subscribed to the backend. So whenever there is a new employee inserted, I want to get this data. So here this pattern is applicable. This design pattern is applicable. Is it clear? Any doubt so far? What is observable, observer? What is subscription? Or another words are publish, subscribe model. There is a publisher, there is a subscriber, multiple subscribers. Any doubt so far? Okay. So this is the concept, and usually it is required for asynchronous programming, and the data can be in form of streams. Okay, streams means sequence of bytes. So the data can be in form of streams. For example, video stream. So for example, YouTube is getting the data in terms of video or byte stream. Then you have online MP3 or kind of thing, online albums, audio albums. So there also you have audio stream. And sometimes the data is in form of sequence of bytes. So that is also streams. So this data can be in form of streams. It can be in form of HTTP response, or data is coming at regular interval. So for this kind of use cases, this design pattern is being applied. Okay. Now, to implement this design pattern, there is a library called Rxjs. It stands for Reactive Extension for JavaScript. Basically, reactive programming is nothing but asynchronous programming, where the data is not available immediately. And this is the normal use case, because whenever we are fetching the data from the backend is in turn will make a request to the database server. A database server will in turn fire the query on the server, and then it will return the list, and depending upon the amount of data, it will take more time. It will take time to return the data. Meanwhile, the client is waiting. Okay. Meanwhile, the client is waiting. So suppose the data is 1,000 records, or say 1 lakh record. So it takes some time to fetch all the 1 lakh record and return it on over the HTTP protocol. So it cannot become in say in 1 nanosecond. It will take some time for data to arrive on the client. So in that case, what happens? The client is simply wasting time because it is waiting. So to avoid this kind of thing, asynchronous programming is handy. In that case, client can do some another work. You already studied AJAX. So that is the benefit of AJAX. So here also, that is the main benefit of asynchronous programming. The client is no more waiting for the data to arrive, but whenever the data is ready or available on the client side, a callback is there, a callback function will be invoked. So this library is available Rxjs. We can use it with the JavaScript language, and it uses this observable and observable types. And there are much to it, but due to the time limitation, we cannot go into the more depth of it. But we will learn that much, whatever it is required for us right now to develop our project. So this is the mechanism, what we are going to do, that we have Angular component and there is a service. So basically we are subscribing to the service that whenever there is a record, employee record, notify to me. Now what the service is doing, it uses this class, the object of HTTP client, through which it can make HTTP request, like HTTP GET request, POST request, put, delete, patch. There are many HTTP request type. So basically, HTTP client object will issue the HTTP request, and on the server side, it will give the HTTP response via fetching the data from the database, and then it will return the HTTP response containing the data. Now, HTTP response may contain the data maybe in the XML format, in the JSON format, or CSV format, or plain text format, any other format. But nowadays, XML and JSON are the standard, and JSON is popular. So what we normally get the data in form of JSON, because now the client can be the client can be written in any language. So the client and server, client side and server side can be developed independently in different languages. So suppose in company we have the employee which know only C#, .NET. So we can develop the backend in .NET. And if you have the people who know say JavaScript only, so they can develop the front end in JavaScript. So likewise, or suppose we have the people who know backend in JavaScript, then they can develop the API in Node.js. Likewise. So this HTTP client is basically this employee service is using this observable pattern via this HTTP client. So whenever there is a data, it would be given in terms of observable object, and this will notify to the component class. So this is the complete mechanism to fetch the data. Right now, what is happening? This part is missing currently. HTTP client, server, and DB is missing. Okay, what we have done so far, only component and employee service, no backend part, because no HTTP client, because backend is not ready. Any doubt in this slide? Any question? Okay, am I audible? Okay. So now what we are going to do, now we are going to use this HTTP client module. We can import it from the Angular common HTTP library. And once we import it, we have to import it within the module, our app module. Okay, within the app module, we have to insert it so that any components can use this HTTP client object. Now, again, now the server is not ready. How to test it? Suppose the server code is not ready, API is not ready. How to test our front end? So what we are doing, once again, we are tricking this client. Basically, we are creating a file called employee.json, and this JSON file is saved on the server in a special folder called assets. So in the asset folder, we are storing this file employee.json. So it is available there. Okay. And now what we are going to do, basically in this figure, this HTTP client will make a call onto the server, but now the data is not coming from the database. It is coming on the server from the static resource. Is it clear what we are going to do? Previously, there was no connection from client to server. What we are going to do, now we are going to introduce this one more component, HTTP client object, through which we can issue the HTTP request. They will make an issue to the server, server will give the response containing the JSON data of employee records. But now again, there is no, this data is not stored into the database, but it is available as part of the JSON file. So server is now we are doing, server is ready on which we are storing the file, creating the file employee.json, m.json, which contains the array of employee records. Okay, so we have ID, name, and designation. So this file is we are creating on the server. So let's go to the server, and we have created this file. Okay, so this is employee assets folder. We have just created this file, and we can insert the record, as many records as we want. Now we are creating this interface iEmployee just to make sure that it is compatible with the data, ID, name, and designation, iEmployee. So let me check. Did I create it? Okay, right now I have not created it, but if you want to make sure that it is compatible with the any client, usually you should create the contract using the interface. So for type checking, for better type checking, we have to create the interface which contains ID, name, and designation of the types numbers, strings, string, and string respectively. Now, what we have to do in the employee service code, we are creating an object of HTTP client via the dependency injection. So see that within the constructor, we specify HTTP client object. Once we have the object of HTTP client, we can issue the GET request. Okay, so there is a method is been changed. Previously, this employee service itself contained the static records, but now it gets this employee records from the server. So it issues get employees method is issues the http.get method, and as part of the parameter, it has to give the URL. So see that right now this on the same server the file is available employee.json. So simply specify that path. Okay, so this path we are passing as part of the parameter, and you can see that simply it will issue the HTTP GET via this parameter and this URL. This URL will fetch this data, and this data is written as the return type. So you can see the return type is iEmployee array. Okay, it's an array of interface iEmployee, and the data type is observable. See that data type is observable, and we have also imported this observable type from the Rxjs. Okay, we have imported this data type from the Rxjs. Basically, it's a class of observable. Okay, it's a generic type. You can see that it's a generic, and corresponding interface and HTTP client is also being imported into the service. Now we have to make change into the our component class. So we have modified in this figure. What we have done, we have modified this service class, employee service class, and now we have to modify the component class, because now this data is coming as an observable. So this component has to subscribe to this service. Okay, so whenever there is a data, the data would be notified to the component class. So now the way they are interacting has been changed. They are applying this observable pattern. Okay, observable observer pattern or publish subscribe model. So we have modified the employee service. Now we have to modify the component class, and it is quite easy. The employee list is empty. Within the on init lifecycle hook, we are invoking the get employees method through the employee service, and we need to subscribe. So see that after get employees, there is a dot subscribe. Dot subscribe means subscribes to the observable, which is written by get employees method. And we have to pass the callback function as the parameter. So I'm not writing as a separate function. I am passing the function itself as the anonymous using the arrow function. So this function must take the parameter data, and if it is the data is available, this data is nothing but we know that it is returning the employee records. Okay, we are storing into the employee list. Right now we have not specified the data type, but if you want to be more strict, you can specify the data type as well. Okay, right now it is it will assume to be the any in the TypeScript, but if you want to be more specific and the compile time checking can be more stricter if you specify the data type. So basically, it is getting the data, which is nothing but the employee list, employee records, and we are initializing it, and we'll get this data. Okay, any doubts so far? Okay, subscribe method, like I told you, that component class is subscribing to this method. So whenever there is a data, this callback function will be executed. That is we call as asynchronous method. In the previous case, what happened? It is synchronous call. It is asynchronous call. That is the difference between synchronous call and asynchronous call. In the synchronous call, it is blocked until the data comes. Right? In our normal programming, we write whenever we write function, all those functions are synchronous, because as soon as you call, the control will be transferred to that function, and the program cannot proceed to the next function until the data arrives. Here, what happens? The program can proceed to the next function even after calling that function because it is asynchronous function. And whenever the data is available, this callback function will be executed. This is something like you already done event handling. What we do in event handling normally, we write down the event handler. But when we write down event handler, it will be invoked immediately. Will it be invoked immediately? No, because that event handler will be executed only when that event happens. Suppose I have written event handler for mouse click. If I have written event handler for button click, so they are asynchronous. They are not called immediately. Here also, this employee list, this callback function will not be executed immediately. It will be executed whenever the observer notifies observable notifies the observer. So that is we mean by the subscribe. Is it clear now? If it is still not clear, you can ask the question now. Who pass data to employee service? Means in constructor. It is Angular. Angular will create an instance of the employee service and it will pass the data to the this component class. And it is called dependency injection. In dependency injection, we need not create the object ourselves. It is the duty of the Angular framework to create an instance of the class which has been passed as the parameter. So it will look at that this is available, then it will pass it. Okay, so let us go to the code. We have Angular component. We have to modify this service. Yeah, so you can see that this is the service code that we have seen in the slide. This is the basically this is our URL, which is pointing to a static resource stored onto the server, and this method get employees, which returns observable type to which any observer can subscribe to, and it calls this HTTP client dot get. Okay, and now we have to change this code simply. Now I need to switch from. So basically, I have created a different service. This. Let me check it. Yeah, so it is working. You can see that there is no change in the output. What is the change? The change is now the data is coming from the server from the asset.json. So suppose I change this file like employee.json, what will happen? Just temporarily I am changing this. You can see that I think what is, yes, there is some problem. Okay. See that as soon as I have changed the data, see the list is different because now the data is coming from the employee.json file from the server, not from the static list which was previously available to the service itself. So see that it is becoming dynamic and you get the data dynamically. Okay, I'm done with all this new topic. So see that what we have now, we are simply switching from front end to back end. We are also getting the data from the back end. So far the data is static, but now we'll modify the back end so that the data is dynamic. And then our final project would be ready. Like you can write your own server and send the data to the client, and client can render the data. And one more thing I wanted to show you is currently it is You can change the look and feel easily. So see that now I'm using Bootstrap table. Same data previously using list. Now it has been displayed as part of the table, Bootstrap table. I will show you the code also for your reference. So see that this is the Bootstrap code. These are the different Bootstrap classes: table, table border, table hover, table small, table responsive. And this is the ng for loop that we have used. These are the fields that we want to display: ID, name, and designation. So this is the simple code. These are the here it should be ID. So simply you can change the look and feel by switching it to the Bootstrap classes by applying Bootstrap classes. You can display the data as the list, or you can display the data in the tabular format. Okay, fine. Thank you. And best of luck for the exams. Okay, asset folder is created in the root folder. It is already there. When you scaffold the project, it is already there. Yeah, so in the source folder, there is a asset folder. And within asset folder, you can create this employee.json file. No, Angular is not completed because still we have to look at like redirecting from one page to another. So those concepts are still pending. That will cover after the second sessional. And testing the Angular code, that is also being left right now. Okay, fine. Thank you.